All right, what's going on out there, everybody? Hey, we're back with another episode with no feelings, just facts. I'm your own Clevonne on the scene with Miss Tosha V.
Hey.
Mr. Ron is out today, but we got a special guest in the house, Miss Lorraine Lindsey.
What up, what up, what up?
Yes, she's up in here. This is a, well, what can we define you as?
Well, woman first and foremost.
Which we know.
I'm just kidding.
Which we know.
No, I'm a coach. I do life coaching, mindset coaching. I have my own podcast show.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm a speaker. I kind of do a lot of everything, I guess.
All around hustler.
Yeah.
All around hustler as well. So today's topic, what we're talking about today, because we're picking up where we left off last week, is we're talking about toxic relationships. Today we want to bring up about your role in a toxic relationship. So all of us have been, I don't care how cute, ugly, whoever it is, everybody has been in a toxic relationship. So I just want to let me throw myself out there real quick. When I look at a toxic relationship and my role in a toxic relationship, what was my role? My role was interesting. That's all I'm going to say. My role was mainly focused based upon what I always seen. So I continued the cycle on what I seen, and it was just a repetitive thing. I seen toxic relationships within the family, everything. So in my mind, that's what it was. And I continued that whole cycle. My role within being in a relationship, oh man, dude. Y'all really...
You're saying a lot, but you're not saying anything.
That's
I ain't
right.
saying
What was your
nothing.
role?
Be more specific.
My role initially is what I ignited. I would say for me personally, I can look at my episodes of whether it had been cheating, whether it had been my own expectations on the person. I would say those roles actually did not help.
Well, typically in a toxic relationship, right, you've got two people, the victim and the villain. The problem is they're interchangeable. And most of the time, the one who thinks they're the victim doesn't realize that they're also the villain at different times.
Yep.
And so it's a matter of when you talk about what your participation is.
Okay.
Some people like to live in the role of a victim. They love to be victimized. And I say that in a very subconscious way, right? So they love to be able to go to their friends or their family or to people and always talk about how this relationship is so bad to them.
Yeah.
But they always only tell their portion of the story as it suits them, so they can be, so people can sympathize with them or empathize with them and feel sorry for them, not realizing that on the other end of that, there are times when they're being victimized because they're the antagonist.
That's a good point right there.
Cleve, were you the victim or the villain?
Hey, I was the victim.
Of course you were.
Now, wait, let me ask you this question really quick, because you've been in relationships yourself. Which one were you, the victim or the villain?
I was both. It just depends on the season of the relationship. But for me, for example, my toxicity also involves me being in a push-pull relationship, meaning I'll be in one day, right? We'll be all good. And then we break up, have a breakup, then we make up, have a makeup. But there's always some level of really toxic behavior going on, whether it's gaslighting, whether you're manipulating one another, whether there's infidelity or verbal or physical abuse. And then you get the peaks and valleys, right? One minute you're like super, super happy and feeling good and everything's passionate.
Right.
And then the passion goes into the other side of like anger or rage or insecurities or manipulation, and you just go back and forth. So there were times when I was feeling insecure because of my own pathology, stuff that I'd been through in my life, where I show up trying to protect that and then turn it into an antagonist in the relationship.
So let me ask you this really quick. Have you ever brought into a relationship the toxicity from your past?
Yeah, of course, but not knowingly, right?
Unconscious, right?
A lot of times we do it without knowing, because really, what do they say? Hurting people hurt people.
True.
So the reality is, a lot of times when we get into these toxic relationships, it's because there's a lot of unresolved within ourselves. It starts with, right, because like attracts like. So it's like, if I'm a hurting person, I'm going to attract someone who is also hurting.
Trauma bond.
Or insecure.
A trauma bond.
That's called a trauma bond.
That's pretty dope. So wait, let's go to you, Tosh, real quick. What was your role in a toxic relationship?
How I view it, I can sit
No,
here.
I
can sit here honestly.
Let's be honest.
Because I was thinking when you said what the topic was, I'm like, what is my role? Because I think in my mind, I'm the perfect woman, right?
Okay.
So,
and you are.
Oh, you know what? Let's call him. Let him answer. Can we do that, Juan? You feel like making a call for me?
Ooh, this is good. I like this.
Shit, I ain't calling mine.
I ain't calling mine either.
Shit. Hey, we all good.
He'll be like, finally, I get to say my part.
I got access to you.
Because I never asked. I can only go by my vision of what I seen going wrong, right? But I never really asked this man what was my role in the breakdown of our marriage.
Did you ever get to a point where you were being honest with yourself to admit your own flaws? Because that's one area.
My mouth is reckless. I'm very respectful, but I'm the type where I pick my battles, right? And I like to say that because that sounds good. I'm picking my battles. But I hold everything. And once that lit...
Oh, here we go. We got to put the headphones on for this.
That's good.
What's the name?
Yeah. I'm going to get him. Now, look, my heart is beating.
This is good. My heart's beating too.
Mine ain't.
Such a mofo.
I'm just eager to see what the outcome of this is overall.
Wait, you know what? What number did I give you?
All right. So as Tasha,
I gave him my number. Look.
She got nervous. All right. So here's reality though. Seriously.
No, I really want to ask him this. 20.
So you want to ask him this, but the question is, so you're saying that you don't recognize anything that you did wrong.
When I say I used to belittle him without meaning to.
So wait, stay there real quick before we actually make this call to this man.
That's relevant what she's saying though.
Right.
Exactly. That's okay, so go to that.
Because in my mind, right, I have this thing, I don't disrespect my man. But I used to say little things to him to belittle him. I didn't think it was that. Like I would say, you're not my lifeline, or what you want to do. Now, this is a 10-year marriage, right? And he said I made him feel like he was disposable. Like I didn't need him.
Did you go into the relationship looking for longevity, or were you carrying her?
No,
it's a question.
I thought I was, but mentally in my mind, because of how I was raised, childhood trauma, because we spoke about what I was raised with. A man can leave at any time. So in my mind, I'm thinking, you're
waiting for the ball to drop.
Yeah, but in my mind, it's already, the seed is planted. This isn't going to work. Right. So it was always a mindset of 1 foot in, one.
So to your point, Tasha, it's exactly what she's saying. Just so I can expound on it, because people listen, they might be like, "Oh, that's a light bulb for me." When she was using those passive aggressive terms to him, right, and it was in a way emasculating because he's sharing with her. It makes me feel like I'm this big.
Yes.
Really, what she was doing subconsciously was looking for reassurance, but not knowing the right tools to get it. Right. So it's like, you're not my lifeline. That translates to what she really wants him to say is, yes, I am, and here's why, and this is, and give him the reassurance.
Yeah, not just say, but the actions. But I needed the actions.
So when you look at the actual actions, because like you just said, use the point right there when you say being a person's mouth being reckless. A lot of us, because I grew up where I'm going to cut you down with words. I want to cut you down where I want to penetrate that for the rest of your life on purpose. But it's unconscious because out of frustration. So like you said, that is a normal attribute that a lot of us have. And when you get in your feelings, when you get frustrated, that's one thing that comes out.
Quan, make that call for me, because I really want to know what he's going to say.
I'm going to challenge you on that. When you know, and this is me being in coach mind, okay?
Okay, go for it.
And why I do like mindset coaching specifically. Because it's language, it's what we say, right? Words have two things, division or unity.
Yes.
So when you normalize a behavior, like what you said, which was key, you said it's normal.
It would be normal
to do that. But the reality is it? It's not.
At this point, it's not, because it's something I have to work on.
Hey, E, can you hear me? Hey, yeah, I can hear you. Okay, I'm recording on a podcast right now, so I have a question for you, okay? What role did I play? I'm sorry?
I said, okay, no doubt.
What role did I play in the breakdown of our marriage?
What role did you play in the breakdown of our marriage? Okay, I'm not going to consider it to be a role. I don't think that it was a role. I think that the breakdown of our marriage was we didn't try. I think that in all honesty, it had to do with a lot of my belief structure, and it had to do with the fact that I was coming out of something and looking for myself. And in the process of me looking for myself, relocating from a whole nother state, going somewhere where I don't know nobody, I've never been there before, so I don't have no family, no friends, no nothing. I went out there to be with you. And in that process of going out there to be with you, I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like at the time you didn't want to hear anything I had to say. I was trying to express myself the best way I could, trying to explain to you, you moved out there with a job. I'm relocating out here and I have to find a job, and it's not as easy for selling as you think.
Well, I'm gonna jump in because you're a talker.
Can we now?
I made it a good observation too, so I want to chime in on that. But go ahead.
Yeah, we got. So it's all of us at the round table, really quick, so we can just throw this one out here. The topic that we're using right now is the person's role in a toxic relationship. What was your role? Because so many of us spend so much time blaming the other person. So that's what we're all dealing with here.
Right now, he sounds accountable, though.
Yes, which he really does. And so what Tosha is bringing up right now is her role. If she's saying that she's trying to figure out what did she initially do, which was more so hurtful to the relationship herself, to really penetrate that. Because we got your part as far as your accountability, but she's want to address her own accountability, but hear it from you because you experienced her.
I think it boiled down to she just gave up. She gave up. She didn't want to be in a marriage anymore. It's too many restrictions. I was coming out of a cult. And in coming out of a cult, being there since I was 19 years old, not understanding what type of environment that I was in, when it finally dawned on me what type of environment that I was initially in, I had to refine myself. I had to dedicate to trying to figure out who I was because I've been in it since I was 19. And she just didn't have the patience to allow me to become a man right in front of her. There was no support. There was nobody I can talk to.
Would you feel like a lot of it was belittling as well along the way? Like a lot of the words she would use would be belittling in the midst of you trying?
Nah, she's not that kind of person. I think that it was more so she didn't understand.
So if I could jump in real quick, is it E? Is his name E? Mm-hmm. Hi, E. My name's Lorraine. So this is something that I heard, and I'm just kind of going to bring it into, package it up, right? One of the things that Tosha said prior to her calling you was that she felt like, and this is her being accountable, saying, one of the things that I said was that you're not my lifeline. And that was something that she felt that it belittled you or made you feel emasculated. And to your point, you said you didn't feel enough. What is interesting when I'm listening to you speak is one of the things that you said is I was coming out of this thing and I was looking for a lifeline. It was your words verbatim. Mm-hmm. So here you have two people, right, where you're looking for a lifeline and she's saying you're not her lifeline, but you were looking for her to be yours. And ironically, by her using that language, you're not my lifeline, she was looking for a lifeline as well. So at the essence, at the root of the tree, you guys emotionally were the same people. It's just that the way that you showed up and the way your behavior expressed what you were both mutually feeling, it just showed up different.
Trauma bond.
Correct. You guys had a trauma bond, which showed differently. For example, my relationship was abandonment versus engulfment. I felt smothered by somebody. He was trying to be enough for me, but we were both dealing with abandonment issues. And when two people come together, hurting people, we can either, the truth is we come together to heal one another, but we have to be willing students to that. Otherwise we end up in toxic relationships.
Which is very true. And so that's what we wanted to, she wanted to just bring you in on this really quick. And we appreciate you for answering as well.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Can I interject really quick?
Go for it really quick.
The you're not my lifeline. That wasn't said in a mean way. I understood what she was saying because she comes from an independent background. She don't depend on no man. So the breakdown of our relationship was trying to get her to depend on somebody, to try to get her to have faith in somebody that believed in himself, but he didn't have anything in his hands. I just had a dream. I had a vision. And the fact that I couldn't produce in that vision was the demise of our relationship, if I could look at it accurately. Because I understood what she meant by "you're not my lifeline." That was saying she can't depend on me. She was raised.
But a woman, and I speak for this because I'm a very independent woman, and I have a very hard time allowing a man to take care of me. But a woman who carries the level of independence, and the perception is that she is a woman of strength. It's really a woman puts on her suit of armor, which is a masculine energy, because she is afraid that someone will fail her, like something won't work, the ball will be dropped. And so when we say that someone's not our lifeline, it's not really that's really what we want. We just want to feel safe, right? And women who have not had that security her whole life, she puts on armor to protect that. And so that to me, with what you guys are describing, it just sounds like there was just not necessarily toxic. I don't know what other things happened, but it just was such a breakdown in communication.
It sounded like more of a growing up.
It was just a communication breakdown.
More of a growing apart type of situation. Hey, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for answering.
You're welcome.
All right.
You're welcome.
Take care.
Oh.
Okay, so when you're looking at because one thing he said, which
they still love each other. Huh?
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah,
I love him. No doubt. He's a good person. I love him. It's just we're not meant to be together.
So one of the things that was brought up, which is a great point, when he said the person had no patience, I would like to just bring that up. As us going into toxic relationships, we're expecting so much from people to jump right in there, to be ready to go when we're ready to go. But everybody's not like that because we wasn't patient enough to get into it. So it made it more toxic.
Well, it's the difference between your standards versus your expectations, right? Anytime you have an unwillingness to raise your standard,
okay,
you create expectation. Okay, and when you're creating expectation, you're setting yourself up for failure and disappointment and hurt and grief because the expectation is putting the burden on the other person to live up to an idea that's in your mind. And often the expectation is something we're unwilling to fulfill within ourselves first.
Very true.
And we all do it. We're all guilty of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes we have the ability to set the bar so high where we know no one can reach that bar.
Right.
Because we really don't want anyone close to us like that because we don't want to feel vulnerable.
I think it really depends on, so going into looking at our role, okay? So when we're looking at our role, you was explaining your role when you were saying about what happened with you and your ex. You were just initially saying, what was your role again? Because I really made it very vague, victim or villain. But I was saying that I could be the villain. There were times in the relationship where I understood his pain points, right? And because I was feeling insecure, I would push the buttons to stimulate a reaction from him. So, for example, I grew up in a very violent home. There was a lot of domestic violence growing up, right? Okay. And so being with a man that had an aggressive personality, there were times in the beginning of the relationship where his behavior would be aggressive. But I was always waiting for him to be that next level aggression and be a physically violent person. And he wasn't. He had other issues, but I would, in the beginning, not realizing my own anxiety of when a man exudes aggression, in my mind, he's going to put his hands on you. And so I would push him raising his voice. I would push buttons to antagonize him to see if he would hit me. That's an honest response right there. Most people will never, ever come out and say that. That I actually was the person who pushed the buttons.
I was push
on purpose. And like for me personally, I can use how I took church into my relationship. Which made it toxic. Why did it make it toxic? Is because of the fact that the environment that I was already set in was not healthy, and I'm trying to conform my relationship to an unhealthy situation, which already wasn't no better.
When you say church, what do you mean?
Yeah, I was just going to ask that.
Church could be a beautiful thing to bring into a marriage.
Well, it could be, but it depends on what you're dealing with, though. When you're dealing with something that's not pushing the growth, the element for you to go further, it's already certain environments that you can be in could be toxic.
So it wasn't church; it was the church. Environment. The people in the church.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying, because it's mentality, right? Sometimes you have family where you bring them around and you're like, oh, that's my cousin. They're like, your cousin don't like me. And they're like, well, you better respect my cousin. Instead of saying your cousin needs to respect you. So you let all that toxicity come into the relationship. What's your role is you bringing it. You're welcoming it as well. A lot of times we welcome unhealthy attributes.
Or it becomes norm and we're not even sure that it's toxic. Like, say, for instance, how you say you grew up in a toxic, physical violence in your home, right? Growing up. And then so you brought it into your marriage or your relationship. That's your norm. Right. So in your mind, it's not a trigger. Oh, this is a toxic, thing I'm doing, or it's your norm. So until the other person points it out or till you reach this level of maturity where you like, this is not healthy for me. It's your norm.
So go back.
That's actually really profound because a lot of things that we're talking about, if people literally can listen and they don't think.
Yes.
They're literally operating in their norm.
Yes.
They're like, what are they talking about?
Right.
I remember my son's father. He was telling me, so I had a kid when I was really young and we broke up many, many years ago, but we've become very good friends. So he was at the barbershop. And the barber that's cutting his hair is my sister's ex. So they have a child together as well. And they were laughing and they were like, the Lindsey girls are the shutdown girls. You don't mess around with the Lindsey girls. And he was joking. Here we are 20 years later. And he's like, yeah, we were joking about the Lindsey girls in the barbershop. So what do you mean by the shutdown girls? He's like, you guys are lethal. Like you'll come in and you'll get a man all worked up and then you just cut him off like an avatar, like you cut his head off. And
a lot of people do that.
It's like the Cold War. You just cut him off.
Yeah.
And in my mind, until he said that to me, I thought everybody did that. I'm like, well, when someone's being nasty or whatever, you just cut them off. He's like, no, you cut them out.
Man, ain't that true?
And I was like, my mama does that. My sisters do that. Like we do that to one another. There will literally go 3-4 months where me and my mom will get into it. We won't speak. And to me, that's normal. Yes. And I didn't realize that's that normal language. Yes. I did not realize that it is a very unhealthy form of communication.
It's crazy because I was just having this conversation with my nephew last week, and his spouse is from a family where they don't mind like coming to blows. Like they actually fight each other, or they'll go months or years without talking to each other.
Normal.
And in my household, that's a no-no. Like we'll get into it, but we never put our hands on each other. Or if we're into it, when we see each other at the next function or the next week, it's like it never happened. We apologize. It's not made into a big deal, but we'll get past it.
Yeah.
And so his spouse was like, your family's weird. Like you guys don't know, we don't hold grudges with each other because we're family. But so to him, what was his norm, he's coming to our situation like, you guys just argued last week. Now you guys are at each other's house. Like, it's no big deal. Right. And we was like, because we get past it. And he was like, no, we would have, in my family, we would have had to fight. And I'm like,
isn't it crazy how a lot of us, once again, welcome in toxic people, toxic situations into our environments? For instance, if you and your brothers and sisters don't get along, right? You guys fight and you don't talk for a while. There are people that will come in your setting and egg it on to push it a lot further, to really press the envelope to see how far it goes. And what happens is that's a trait, once again, a family trait that is continuous with a lot of us. But we don't admit that we brought these people in. We don't admit that we went and searched out for these type of people.
Or we don't admit when we are entering into that family dynamic, because it's very important when you're coming into someone's family to sit back and watch the family dynamic.
A lot of people don't do that though.
To see how that family moves with each other.
Yes.
Because my nephew's spouse is having a hard time, and I'm like, you have to be patient because this is new for him. He's used to where they get the aggression out and, or they just shed each other out, like you said, that some families do. I said, so you have to be patient because this is new to him.
That trauma.
Yeah, and vice versa, because sometimes we enter into a family where we see it as toxic, but it's their norm.
Yes.
And so it's up to us to either decide if we're just going to remove ourselves from the situation, like you guys do your thing, and I'm going to just sit over here reserved, or how we're going to move about in that family dynamic.
And you give me a look like, you're like, what do you got to say about that? No, and this is, okay, so this is what's so important, right, is awareness is always very key, and it's so hard to create that awareness because, again, if it's a norm for me and now I have a partner that wants something different out of me, it requires me to shift and to change, right, to renew my mind is what the requirement is. And for a lot of people, when change happens and you have to adapt, it's very uncomfortable, even if it's something that's going to be for the better. And I'll use a silly metaphor of, like, let's say working out. Let's say I know that my body as it is not healthy. And so someone says, well, the only way that you can become healthy is that this is the steps that you have to change your body. The process to change it is very, very uncomfortable, and it creates a lot of consistency and work and dedication before you see the result, and it's not as painful, right? But it's very difficult, and often when we get into toxic relationships, people say it's the mirror image of who you are.
Very true.
But what is the mirror image? When I look in the mirror, I'm seeing the opposite, right? So you're coming together with someone who is demonstrating the same emotional trauma, the trauma bond, but the way it's being demonstrated is often different. So with your cousin, with them, if I were to sit down and have a conversation with the two of them, I would probably find at the root, they're exactly the same. It's just their families' ways of teaching a behavior are just different.
Right.
So if they were to actually have a conversation and understand what the root was, it would help to be more patient. It would give compassion, but then they could both work through the pain point.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And another thing, like your role of the toxic is, like you just said, bringing your teachings in. Are you willing to change the way you were taught and change your thought process in order to fix where you're going into? Because a lot of us got our mind blocked off. That my mama did it like this, my daddy did it like that. And I always ask this question to a lot of people. I say, what's the difference between being buried and planted? One's going to grow, one's not. But a lot of people feel if you're trying to help them grow or trying to help them out, then you are trying to bury me. And a lot of people don't understand that.
Well, that's because it has to be your own choice, right? It doesn't matter. It's the old cliche. You bring the horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink the water.
Yes.
A lot of times when we're in relationships where there is this contention, we are so focused on changing them. We want them to conform to us, right? Because human beings are just self-serving.
Say that again.
We're looking, when there's contention, we're looking for conformity. We're like, you're the problem. Remember, you're the victim. You're
I've been guilty of that myself.
And I really need you to change to make me happy. But the reality is, the change has to happen within you first.
Yes.
Right? You have to say, again, if I know my family, this is how my mom did it, this is how my grandmother did it. You can say that, and that's okay.
True.
But the question you really need to ask yourself, but is this working for me?
Right.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
I can say that is a reality, and it is true. But am I happy? Is this working for me? Is this making the person that I say that I love happy? And if I can look at that from my perspective to say, well, let me see what I can do first to outgrow that pathology, that mindset, to change what I believe about something. You know, you talk about the church or whatever. Repentance, what is repentance? It's the renewing of your mind. It's how you change your mind.
But once again, though, what I'm saying is those are relationships that you carry on.
Not necessarily. If you choose to.
If you choose. So if I use the church, for example, right? The hardest part of the church is breaking loose from it. I don't care what nobody says. The mindset, right? Because you've been brainwashed indirectly. You have, this is my family, this is my norm, this is what I know. And most people will come, because I had people come to me and say, dude, why are you still tied to that? No, I got to do this and I got to do that. And they're like, dude, but still, why do you have to be tied to that? And I made up every excuse why I need to stay tied to it.
Well, why did you? Why did you feel like you needed it?
Because it's what I was raised with. It's a cultural thing.
And it's a comfort zone because he didn't know anything outside of that.
It's a huge,
right? Right. So now, say, for instance, you're stepping out on your own. There go your resources. There go the people that was supporting you when you were beneficial to them. So now you're stepping out on your own. So now it's kind of like starting all over, because now you have to build this new network that's not tied to this circle. You have to come up with different resources.
Yeah, preach.
So the people
First Lady.
And I was in the cult for 10 years. So in the cult, and it's the same, the church is still the mindset, the group think mindset, right? So you form this community, and you function within this community. So all your resources are relied on this community. So it's like breaking free and it's starting all over. So now it's like, okay, I need this done. Who do I call?
Right.
I didn't build anything outside of this community. So now I don't know who to reach out to.
And that goes for not just something like a cult or a church or anything dogmatic for that matter. It goes to toxic relationships, to the relationships we have with family members. That human beings are innately tribal, right? We're always forming a tribe. The community is important for human beings. We're not necessarily meant to be in solitude. And so however we form that tribe, however we get into those cults or dogmas, and a dogma is what? It's a practice of something, right?
Yes.
That's lined up by this, and that. We can create that within just our own lives outside of a church community, for example. But but to your point, it's like the key is like when you leave those environments, when you remove yourself from the toxic relationship, or when you create boundaries with toxic people within your family, or you say this cult is debilitating and I have to get out, the fact is, you are going to be on an island. It's like cleaning the slate in a way and unlearning.
It's
right?
necessary.
That's
it's
not
necessary.
Easy. That is not easy.
The thing that people are always pressing upon other people is you need to change. You need this, need that. But the reality is no one's being honest and saying, and by the way, when you do, it's going to feel lonely.
Yes.
And you're going to...
Depression is going to set in.
You're going to be ostracized by your community because if you're changing your mind, that means that your tribe has to change as well, because your tribe is so much important, just as important as your own personal growth in order to support it. And it can be a very lonely journey.
It is a very lonely journey.
And you know what? The fear of letting go of toxicity is not easy, because when that's your norm, it's not that easy to let it go.
Because then you don't think it's toxic, right? You're not using
you don't think exactly
toxicity.
Psychologically.
You're literally telling yourself this is love. So that's what the stronghold is because the misunderstanding that you have in your mind is that toxic relationship, which is learned behavior, is like, this is familiar. This is what I understand to be love. And the stronghold is that you're misinterpreting toxic, negative things for love.
If you fight.
And vice versa, though, because I have encountered people where they've been so freaking messed up from previous relationships, where if you're being a genuine person and you're really trying to love them and they think they see a red flag, they shut you out or they shut down.
A lot of people, I've been guilty of that myself.
Jaded people.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that. And trigger words too.
Right.
Trigger words.
So it's like it really takes a person to really dig deep and really do the work before they even venture out and bring someone into that because it's messy. It really is messy.
But a lot of people don't think it's messy because this is my norm. This is what I do. I'm like you said before, ain't nothing wrong with me. And that's in the mindset of so many people. There's nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the way I think. There's something wrong with the way you think. It's like a line of, I'm supposed to be successful and go further than somebody telling you no. But in my mind, everything that I'm doing to go be successful is right, but it really isn't.
Everything you do in your life is your BS. I tell people this all the time. And what I mean by that, it's your belief system. The mind does not have the capacity to make you a liar. Okay? So if I believe that every relationship is toxic, that's a command. And so every person that I meet, my brain will only seek out the answer to my narrative.
Very true.
Right?
Very true.
You are telling a story. Your life is a storybook. You are telling the story. And if you believe that every relationship and every person has a toxic element that they're going to bring to you, then the brain says, I, Captain. And they go looking with their looking glass for something to support your truth. The brain doesn't get that this is my pathology. This is what my mama taught me. It doesn't get that. It just knows what you tell it.
Very true. So once again, are we searching for it?
Yes.
Yes.
When we get into a relationship, are we?
If you believe that, yes.
But unconsciously though.
Yes. So you have your conscious mind and you have your subconscious mind, right?
Yes.
Your subconscious mind is limitless in capacity. It just doesn't understand language. It only understands emotion. It is its language, if that makes sense. So for example, my conscious mind, my brain, my frontal cortex, which tells me my identity, speaks to me in language. That's all the crap that you have going on in your head. Conversation. There are certain conversations we have inside our mind that trigger emotion.
True.
So if the language and the conversation in my brain triggers depression, sadness, turmoil, toxicity, and I can physically feel that in my body, the subconscious says, oh, this is the emotion this person likes to feel. Let me go out there and seek it out for them. Your subconscious mind has everything working for you and against you all in the same room. It's just what you're looking for. If I look around this room, I can say there's blue. Blue could equal pain. I could also say, look inside this room, there's the color red, and red could be love. They're both in the room. It's what am I looking at?
The Matrix.
What am I focused on?
It's the Matrix.
It really is.
It's the Matrix. Some people are just...
We overcomplicate it.
Yeah, we do. And you got to remember this too. When you actually go into a situation, like you said earlier too, Tosh, make sure you check the environment. Scope out the environment, because if you're dealing with people that are comfortable, that are not going no further, you're stuck.
No, you're not stuck. They're stuck.
Well, they're stuck, but if you tie yourself to it, because sometimes, remember this, there are people that you will tie yourself to that will literally suppress you.
You only tie yourself to people you believe you are. You don't tie. Listen, I have a standard. It's your standard. My standard could be here. It could be here. It could be here. The more I start to reflect and I become accountable and I look for self-love, self-reflection, I get more in touch with who I am spiritually as a person.
Yeah.
Then that's a ray of light. That my love is for me to be love. And that's my abundance, right?
Okay.
So you only attach yourself to people in which that is your subconscious saying that's you. There are certain people, if I told you, if you met somebody who was, let me just say something silly, like, let's say I met a man, okay, I'm single right now. So let's say I met a man and he doesn't brush and bathe every day. Okay, let's say he's the richest guy in the world, but he doesn't brush and bathe every day.
Okay.
I brush my teeth, and I bathe every day. Okay. That is a standard that I hold myself to. So to be around a man with a really foul mouth and a stinky body, and it's a very simple example.
Yes.
But there's nothing that guy could tell me that's going to attach myself to him.
Right.
So when you are
much respect
looking at your life from the outside and letting what's happening on the outside become an emotion that's triggered inside, what you need to look with what I suggest is to look at what's happening on the outside and said, what is it about me that attaches myself to people with this kind of energy or this level? What is it that I believe about myself that attaches myself to that situation?
Good point. So let me bring this, kind of wrap it up really quick. If you had to say something, we're going to start with you, Lorraine. If you had to say something in regards to the people who are in toxic relationships, like when you look at a person's role, what would you say?
I would say be honest with yourself. Like, it's okay that you are in that relationship. And I don't mean okay like it's okay to be in a toxic relationship, but it's okay to say to yourself, where am I at in this? What's my participation in this without making the other person right?
All right.
You don't need to wrong and right an individual. What you need to do is say, is this a space in which I feel happy, fulfilled, loved? And by the way, am I fulfilling? Am I loving?
Okay.
As much as what you need to ask yourself, is that what I'm giving as well? And in what situation, back and forth, are you participating in the positivity and the negativity?
Good,
and then before you, unless it's abusive, if it's abusive, you have to get out. Work on yourself, get out of the relationship. But work on yourself and loving yourself first. And you will be surprised the more you build that abundance within yourself, your lens will shift. And that toxic relationship, you'll find yourself moving away from it, and it won't be so painful to get out of it.
Good point. What about you, Tosh?
Ooh, I mean, it's all comes down to self-reflection when you're in a relationship. Like, you really do have to hold a mirror up to yourself, because we do sometimes play the victim and we're the aggressor a lot of times. Whether we're triggering some reactions, like I always say, when someone says they hit me in my mouth, what did you say? You know what I'm saying? What was that trigger like, and why would you say that, knowing that it would bring this kind of reaction? So self-reflection is like key to me.
Ooh. So,
and if I can say this real quick too, to Tasha's point, it's also being careful not to don't be over accountable when you're in a toxic relationship, because a lot of people do that too. And so now what they do is they guilt themselves into staying. When you're being reflective, it's not to say, God, I'm the bad person. Now I'm realizing I'm the villain, because then you're victimizing yourself and you're still the victim, right? It's like, what is happening here? Just logically, what's happening here? And say, like, to your example, he hit me in the mouth or she hit me in the mouth, but what did I say? Doesn't make their action right, but I need to know, where am I at in this?
Yeah.
But that still is wrong.
What
right?
I've been encountering, and you witnessed it because you were around, I have women around me that would try to force the victim role on me. I'm like, no, I played a part in this. Just because I'm a woman doesn't make me the victim. Let's be, the reality of it is.
That's real talk.
Because a lot of women, and I'm just putting this out there because we have this false narrative that the woman is always the victim.
Right.
And that is not always the case, because I didn't witness men get physically abused by women. So
yes,
it's
happens.
like, so when I say self-reflection, I'm not coming from an angle of a woman that's in an abusive relationship. I'm speaking from the part of the emotional aspect of it.
Gotcha.
Because we have to realize that men do have feeling too.
Absolutely.
And sometimes us as women, our mouth is a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing. So I'm coming from the aspect of, I was one of the women that would not take the physical abuse, but it never dawned on me how damaging my words were.
Right.
That's interesting.
Powerful.
That's interesting.
That's profound, right? Because that's where your growth is. When you can see you, that's a great place to start.
Which is very true. So what is your role in a toxic relationship? You're the one that's seeking it out.
Mm. You think so?
How did you get into it? Who made the choice to get in there? You're the one that you're the one that seeked it out, and you're the one that got to get out of it.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I don't necessarily.
So when you say you didn't seek it out, meaning, like you said earlier, did I see
because sometimes the picture is painted so beautifully until
it
you get
is,
into the frame. And once you're in the frame, you're like, this is bullshit.
But some of the times we all do see the red flags before we get in a relationship. We all do see the triggers. We see that blink that say, ooh, this ain't going to.
Mindful people do. But most people are asleep. Not everybody's woke.
Okay, got you. So if you're a person who is conscious and awake and you do see the red flags, be honest with yourself. Like you said before, be honest with yourself so that you don't waste time. Because one thing we don't have is time. And
that's why, Tosha, not to interrupt you, but that's like Tasha's talking about the self-reflection.
Yes.
You know, the seeing yourself, and then when you get into an environment, saying, does this make me happy? Why? What is this feeling? Whew. And understanding, because some people don't know what red flags are because, like we've been talking about, it's so familiar to our upbringing. Mm-hmm. Yes. So it doesn't look like a red flag to us. It looks like a welcome flag. It
looked like, hey, look at here. All the drama you ever wanted is right here. So for me personally, I would definitely say coming out of a toxic situation, looking at your own role, myself, I can honestly be honest with myself and say I seeked it out. I was seeking for that because what is it? It's not a good relationship if it ain't toxic. It ain't a good relationship if they don't argue or fight or something like, even though I don't like arguing.
That's how you felt?
I don't like to argue.
No, I mean, you felt like that before.
I was taught that. I was taught that. Gotcha. Like, this is great. This is a great relationship. They're over there fighting. I mean, they just broke all their dishes. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
that was his way. That's normal communication.
That was normal. Like, the dude didn't bust a hole in the wall. And they like, she got the rouse out of him and he flipping out. See, y'all look at Cliff. He over there tripping right now. And you go over there, they got all these holes in the wall. Like, yeah, they love each other. They've been together 20 years. And I'm like, that ain't cool. I don't fight women and children. I don't. Like, that's why it's going to be more verbal. Now, if you got a brother, an uncle, or a cousin, tell them sit in my way. That's how I would always feel. But a woman and children, so a lot of people will stay in it and not know how to get out of it because they've been doing it for so long.
Oh, it's a stronghold.
It's a, whoa. Say that again.
It's a stronghold.
It is a stronghold. And a lot of people don't believe in those.
Because they think it's love.
Exactly, and that stronghold is you're not happy unless you're experiencing it.
We rationalize toxic relationships. This person's like this, but it's cognitive dissonance is actually a thing in the brain, right? We say this is bad for us, but he's really good over here and this and that. In my relationship, very vaguely, it was like he's so good, he's so loyal, he's so like driven, he has this and that. But there's this, and that was me trying to rationalize, and then trying to make an excuse to stay because the 80% was good and the 20% was crazy.
And another thing is sometimes you see the potential in a person that potential the person don't give a damn about. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why are you trying to bring out the potential in something that was never there?
We always fall in love with potential.
Exactly. And I've done that too, which makes it what? A toxic relationship. So, hey, we got to come to a close and come to an ending. We appreciate our own guest.
I appreciate being here.
Miss Lorraine Lindsey on the scene. You can reach her at, what is your IG?
At CoachLorraineLindsey.com, or you can check me out on my podcast, The Mindsetters, which is the Lorraine Lindsey podcast show.
Yes. So we do appreciate you. Thank you for being present.
Thanks for having me.
Once again, it's No Feelings, Just Facts. Hey, we love you all till we all meet again. Have a good day. I can't hear nothing.